Well, hello and welcome to the show with me, Jillian Godsil. Today I am talking with Dinny Collins, or Crypto with Dinny, or Bitcoin with Dinny, who is one of Ireland's leading influencers in the whole space of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and retiring early. Dinny, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Jillian. Great to be chatting to you.
Yeah, so we met recently, but in person because we both happen to be in Ireland. But no, we met in England, didn't we?
We were up in Belfast.
Oh, Belfast it was. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about your background and why you are this man of the mission.
Well, if I have to go right back to the very beginning, my motivation was money struggles. Seeing my family, my parents work really hard all their life, and but the family always having money struggles. And it seemed simple, and now I know I was very privileged, and I had an amazing opportunity of where I was born in the lotto, that is where you're born. But back then I was like, Jeannie, we have it hard. We're the poorest family around. Other kids get lovely things for Christmas, and we're getting painted secondhand bicycles, and other kids go on foreign holidays on airplanes, and I'm whatever age, we've never been on one of these airplanes. Someday I'm going to get rich, and I'm going to give my dad loads of money, and he's going to drive a nice car for a change, something he can be proud of. So that was my motivation as a kid, and I used to fantasize about it as a kid, like constantly, just how good it would be to, and I suppose that's why any of us do anything, is for love, I suppose, when you go right back to first principles. But that was my motivation, to try and earn a lot of money, or get rich, was to sort of take away my parents' money troubles.
And then you personally, though, went through some hard times.
Yeah, the best thing that ever happened to me was that I broke my back, which is kind of a funny thing to say, but life went on, and I wasn't doing what I was fantasizing about. I was working in a job. I was working really hard and trying to live below my means and trying to save up, but I wasn't really getting rich, which is what I wanted. And then I ended up having a back accident, and I had a serious injury, put me out of action for, I don't know how you'd quantify it, but I suppose the guts of 3 years of properly not being able to do what I wanted to do. And I spent a lot of time in a hospital and getting surgeries and not being able to walk properly and all the worries of that. But that was pivotal, because it changed my life, because I couldn't go back to my job. The surgeons told me I'd never walk properly again. They told me at best I'd lift a bag of sugar. Now I've done a lot better than that, but that pushed me down a journey to understand my body and to understand health and to learn about rehabilitation and muscles and joints and bones and ligaments and nutrition and building strength and all the additional to complement the surgeries that I got to help me, get back my mobility, get back my health. And it was from doing that and going on that journey. On the outside, I remember people saying to me, "Just Dinny, you look great," because I was a little bit more muscular, I was leaner. People say, "You look great, Dinny." But it wasn't the physical changes that had really what was so profound for me. It was how it changed on the inside. I would have always been a person who wouldn't have had loads of confidence, or wouldn't have had a lot of self-belief or energy or drive, or I'd put my own self in a little box and go, "You're not good enough to do that, Dinny. You can't. That's for smart people." Whereas now with this fitness, I was like, I'd never felt better. I'd so much confidence, I'd so much self-belief, and I'd so much motivation. And I realized I've done a really difficult thing here. I was told I wouldn't walk properly again. Now I've got myself to a position where I'm doing Ironman triathlons. That's something that most people will never do in their life. Dinny, you can do anything you want to. So it really changed me from the inside out and encouraged me to put myself out there and go, well, sure, starting a business, that's going to be easy compared to what you've done, or helping people lose weight, because that was my first business, was in the fitness industry. And I was like, this is going to be simple. I love fitness. Look what it's done for me. It's only positive. What a gift if I can sell people this feeling. Like, it's win-win for everyone. And that was my passion, and what led me down to creating fitness business and working in that industry for well over a decade.
But then you've sorted out, well, you had a huge, obviously, challenge to overcome, being told you never will walk again, that whole physical fitness, and to going to doing Ironman, which is huge. But you've also sorted the financial issue out too as well, which is, I think, a lot of people watching will be very interested to find out, how have you sorted the financial issue out, and how can you help other people to do the same?
I think fitness is and training and exercise is so amazing, because it encourages the principles that we have to use for fitness are the same principles that if we apply them to personal finances, like consistency and discipline. If we apply those to our personal finances, we can really make amazing steps with them. So for me, my journey was, I started to understand about investing quite early, because I always wanted to get rich. So I've always read successful people's books, and I read books on investing. And a book I recommend to everyone is Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's super simple. It's, that's the book I wish was the first book I read on investing, because it makes it a lot easier for someone who isn't financially literate to understand and to get a foot in the game. But because I'd absorbed all these books, I realized the only way to financial freedom is through investing. You can never earn your way there. That's a myth. That's a fallacy. It doesn't work. So the only way is to get your money working, because our money can work 168 hours a week, but we get tired after 40 hours of work. So while I was building my business, I was also building my investment knowledge, my investment skills. I was honing them, I was practicing them. It wasn't something I was teaching, because I was like, well, I don't have a right to teach this stuff. I'm not retired yet. And it was only when I'd realize, okay, I've got myself in a position now. I'm in my 30s. I tried retiring when I was around 37, and that lasted about 6 months. I just got so bored. All my friends worked. There was nothing to do. There's only so many walks you can do. And but I was like, I've got myself in a position to, and I've got a lot of knowledge over the last 10 years, and I've been sharing all my fitness knowledge. Maybe now I'm going to start sharing the financial steps that I've taken over the last decade to put myself in this position. And again, that was, I suppose, that was self-belief, that I was like, initially I'm like, well, you're not rich enough yet, Dinny. It's like, what is the net worth? What's the figure you have to get to before you can teach people? And then I started to question, and I was like, well, you don't need to be worth 10 million before you can start teaching people. You really just need to be a couple of steps. If you think you can give people value, you can probably teach them what you've done.
A total truth. You only need to be a couple of paragraphs ahead of the next person to be able to help somebody else. You don't have to be finished or final. I mean, and you're right. How rich is rich? I'm kind of curious now to ask, how rich are you actually? But that's a rude question, so I won't. But when you say you tried to retire when you're late 30s, you were financially secure at that point. You didn't need to work.
Yeah. I had a business and I had income and I had assets that from my calculations, it's like, this is enough income for me. And I've no debts or anything, so this is enough that I can passively sort of do what I want. I don't have to do stuff. And I'll just give you a little analogy of what helped me come to the conclusion, what you just mentioned there about you don't be so many steps ahead. Meditation has been something I've practiced as well for over a decade. And I remember training with the monks in town, okay? And these are high-level meditators. And I remember being there at a beginner's workshop, and I'd already been meditating for 5 years. So I was pretty good at it. I'd flown around the world. I trained with amazing meditators. And, so I can get myself into a meditative state quite easily. But what I found is the monks, although they were like some of the deepest meditators in the country, they weren't able to communicate that to the beginner. And I could see looking around the room, because I'm a good teacher, I know when people are absorbing stuff or, the level of the room, I could just see these people haven't got a clue. They'd be better off training with someone who's probably been meditating 6 months, because they've made all the mistakes. Whereas these guys, they haven't understood how to be a beginner meditator in 2 or 3 decades. They have no idea why these people can't absorb what they're giving them. And that's why it's important. If you're 15 steps ahead of someone, you're probably not going to be as good a teacher as if you're only 1 step. And that's why even now I always say to people, like, you are good enough. Whatever you can do, someone wants to learn it.
I love that attitude. It's like I was having a conversation earlier with an artist, a visual artist, but she only started painting properly in her late 30s, because she was busy. She was married. She had 4 children. She was working. And it's only when they're late 30s, she went, hang on, I'm an artist. And now she exhibits all over the place, and her stuff is beautiful. But we're talking about, when do you say, I'm an artist? When do you say, I'm good enough? It's a thing, we're very hard on ourselves, aren't we? Our inner voice is very critical about where
we're our own worst critics. And I'll give you an example of that. I was away, little plug to music. Music is something I've took up only since maybe 5 years. And again, my worst critic, I think I'm terrible. I don't realize the progress I've made. I play tin whistles and low whistles and stuff, but being away, I brought my instruments with me, and I used to play outside the camper van during the day after surfing or between sessions. And I'd be always a little bit embarrassed, because the thing about the whistle is it's so loud, you can't practice it quietly. So you can't sneakily practice. Like you can a guitar, you can strum it lightly, no one will hear it. But the whistle, you have to blow hard to get the notes to come out. And I was really paranoid about it. But then people would be coming up going to my friend, like, do you know the guy playing the whistle? That is amazing. Like, and I was like, they can't be talking about me, but like, there's no one else here playing a whistle. But to like French people and Germans, and although by Irish traditional standards, I'd be like a 2 out of 10. But because they had no exposure to it, they were like, wow, that's amazing. We've never heard that sort of sound before. And it was, again, it was just another thing of like, I am good enough. Like I'm comparing myself to a professional session musician who's done this since he was 10 years of age in the west of Ireland. I'll never be there, but I'm good enough for a normal person to go, yeah, we can appreciate what you're doing there. And the best thing about it is I don't play to show off. I play because it brings me joy. It brings me great joy just to sit down. It's sort of a little bit like meditating and practicing it. And music's such an amazing habit. And it's just like, life's so crazy. There's so much gifts and so much things. There's just not enough time to learn and experience everything, but I'm trying.
There's two things that I'm taking from what you're saying there. First is it gives you joy. That's amazing. People identifying what gives you joy, whether it's surfing, which I know you're a mad surfer, or playing the tin whistle, even badly, or singing. I sing in a choir. It gives me joy, but maybe not to those listening if they were close enough, but it doesn't matter. I'm with the choir. The other thing you said, which I think is really powerful, and I went through a very difficult divorce, and then I became a single mom because the dad went off to the UK and didn't actually parent anymore with children. So I became a single mom. And I don't know if you might or might not be aware that but single moms are racked with guilt. Guilt. Parents are racked with guilt often, but when you're a single mom, you're definitely racked with guilt. You're not doing the right thing. You're not, and I was doing lots of things wrong, by the way. But then someone said to me, actually my sister, she said, you're a Jilly mom, which means I don't really cook, I don't bake, I don't do all that domestic stuff, whatever, but I do other things, And then she said to me, and that's enough. You're enough. And I think if we could, that inner voice that says we're not enough and we're terrible and we're bad, whatever, enough. And as you say, for you get joy from playing the tin whistle. And you're not going to be a pro, maybe in 30 years time, you might be a pro, whatever. That's not the point. And also when you're not hurting other people's ears when you play the tin whistle, that's also pretty good. That's the enough thing. So then tell me, because what I want to do in this little bit video is to introduce you to our readers and listeners here on Blockleaders. But then afterwards, I'd love to have you on a regular basis, and I have questions for you, like, agony aunt, but with money. But I just want to go back and say, when you were financially secure in your late 30s. And then was it that stage you discovered Bitcoin, or had you discovered Bitcoin before then?
It was during, I suppose. Bitcoin didn't help me become financially secure. If only, things would have been a lot easier if I had just discovered Bitcoin. I wouldn't have had to do all the work. But Bitcoin has certainly given me confidence in my future financial security without needing to ever have currently made profit off Bitcoin. Just the fact that I own it, understand it, and I've built a pension around it gives me great confidence, because I see Bitcoin as an inevitability. I'm not sure if it's an inevitability in 20 years or 60 years. I don't know if I'll realize Bitcoin being inevitable to the world. Hopefully I will. But either way, I think it is an inevitability. This technology, it's going to just infiltrate everything that has a monetary value eventually. And
so the path to your financial security was through old-fashioned investments then?
Yeah, the path was through, and my biggest investment, the most important one, was into myself. Business was my primary investment asset, okay? And I built the businesses myself. So rather than initially where I started from, I was in a caravan. So I started from zero. So I had nothing to invest, only my own resources, my own energy. So I brought my energy into building businesses, and that meant I was in full control of that investment, because literally the investment was me. I was the business. It was the micro businesses, and I built them. And then it was only through building them and having success, then you realize, okay, I have all this currency, or I have money in my bank account now. I understand that money is the last place that you should store your wealth, because it bleeds value like at 10% a year. So it's, if you have 100 grand, it's costing you 10 grand a year just to keep it. Like, how long till you lose the money? Fairly quickly. So I understood you can't park money in a bank account. Initially, when I was poor and struggling for money, I thought that was the dream, have a bank account full of money. As I've started to become more successful and more educated on how to accumulate money, I realized that you don't accumulate money, you exchange it for assets. Okay, whether you expand your business or whether you diversify into external assets, like precious metals or stocks or property, all the traditional things. And then Bitcoin is just another asset class. So that's sort of what led me down that rabbit hole, sort of not primarily just as an investment asset, but because I was understanding money more clearly, and I was like looking around going, right, well, what is money? How property is money, like euros are money, but so is a house, because pretty much every property in the world has the utility value, but then a monetary premium strapped onto it that we've turned shelter into money, because the most liquid money that we have, our euro or our dollar, it's failing at store value characteristics. So therefore, wealthy people understand that, and we need to monetize other things. And then I suppose I went down the gold rabbit hole and studied, the history of monies, and of course that finishes or brings us up to where we are now. When we left, commodity money was gold, and that was a much better money than the fiat money that we use now, because it was backed by energy. And then along comes Bitcoin, which is a new modern technology money. It works on the internet, so it's digital, which people think is a problem, but it's actually dissolution. And it's backed by energy too. And it's like, oh wow, like this is a huge step for humanity. This is what we've craved, what we've need. Everyone needs Bitcoin. They just don't know it yet. Like governments need it, countries need it, companies need it. Every individual needs it. Every human needs somewhere to store and protect their value. That's why house prices are so high, because we're all buying them up. I'm a property investor as well. I don't want to invest in property. It's just that I need to take my euros out of the bank and put them somewhere better than the euro. And that's how I started to understand Bitcoin. And to me, it's so important, because it solves all the problems that the whole world has with money and the fact that money's leaking energy. Bitcoin is this fixed system where you can store your energy, and what a unique time, because no one understands it. Not nobody, but the majority of the world, powerful and normal people, most people don't get it yet, but we're all looking for it. And my speculation is we all find it, over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Wow. That's very impressive. I've learned lots of things, even though I've spoken to you on a number of occasions. Joy, enough, and investment. Because money is leaking. You're right, because most people think, having money in the bank would be grand, but you don't want money in the bank. You want money in an asset that's going to grow. That's amazing. Okay, I'm going to stop our conversation now. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to get some questions for next week, for the next time we talk, and we can talk about maybe pensions, maybe Bitcoin. Well, actually, there's a question for next time. How do we use Bitcoin as a pension?
Awesome.
That's a really good question. I like that question. Brilliant. Well, Dinny, thank you so much. People want to reach you. It's Bitcoin with Dinny and Crypto with Dinny.
Yeah, Bitcoin with Dinny. You can stick me into Google to get me on all the social medias, or we have podcasts as well on YouTube, Bitcoin with Dinny.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time. Oh, and also the other big takeaway, and you've said it several times, and every time I hear it, I'm going, oh, it's so true. Invest in yourself.
Big time.
The body of ours is the only thing that we have, and let's make sure that it lasts on as long and as healthy a ride as possible. It's like, who is it? Was it Hunter Thompson? He doesn't want to go into his grave with a perfect body. He wants to scream over to the edge of the coffin then and just sort of plump in, and having lived an amazing life. I've not got the quote in my head, but maybe it's a combination of the two. You want to be healthy and also live your life. But Dinny, thank you so much for your time today, and let's come back and talk about pensions and Bitcoin next time.
Thanks, Jillian.